like my son is an example right now of wanting to find the right things to do it forever. And I keep using this as an example, like, Ryan, like I've had 5 careers, and here I am. And so it's hard to know until you know. But the first place you know is in your heart.
Welcome to Vet Life Reimagined. Today I have the CEO of Gallant, the company that is advancing the field of stem cell medicine and bringing life-changing treatments to pets everywhere. My guest is Dr. Linda Black. She's a veterinarian and has a PhD in cell and molecular biology. But her start was that she was a girl who loved her horse. We talk about her career and life changing as she changed. She talks about her tips for leadership, women empowerment, and creating meaningful change in people's lives. We also talk about the future of stem cell therapy for pets and how it may impact us all in vet med. So here is Dr. Linda Black. Welcome, Dr. Black. I'm so excited. You were recommended to be on Vet Life Reimagined, so I'm very excited to hear more about your really fascinating career journey and your interest in veterinary medicine. So, as we all start, when did you know you wanted to get into veterinary medicine?
Gosh, long time ago when I was about maybe 11, I was a horse girl. Had a big seal brown quarter horse gelding, and I rode and showed, in quarter horses in Southern California. And the barn was a place for me. It was like a sanctuary. It was a place where I felt safe. I loved it there. And one day he colicked, and it wasn't a simple, let's walk him for 20 minutes, kind of colic. And one night turned into the next day, it turned into 3 days of sleeping at the barn. And, the veterinarian might have been there maybe 10 times, that kind of thing. And ultimately, he was fine after, bags and bags of fluids and all of that. And ultimately, he was okay. And I think in those moments, I associated, this veterinarian with saving my horse's life and ultimately kind of saving my life because I loved him so much. And in those moments, I decided to be a veterinarian, specifically a horse veterinarian, which is not where I'm at today. But yeah, that was my decision.
Yeah. Well, actually, I always find that very fascinating as well. It's very common to go into vet school with one idea, and then through the years, when you kind of see different things, you change. So, what was that kind of growth for you during vet school?
Yeah, so it actually happened in vet school that I started to really love science. And so I was, in school, but as part of work study and trying to pay for vet school, I worked in some research labs and started to learn about virology and immunology and applying it to the rigors of science and things. And so I started to fall in love with that. And so that sort of influenced, as I went along. And so I graduated veterinary school and not wanting to be not true to myself, I went into equine practice. I did that for about 3 years. Loved it, but always missed the science. And at the same time, I was still working in the lab part time, just doing dabbling, and I really realized after about 3 years that I loved that, and more so than being an equine practitioner, which was out in the field and that. And so I went on and then did a postdoc. I was trying to find the thing between, veterinary medicine and a PhD and all of that. And so I landed in this comparative medicine postdoc where I was able to go into a pharma company. I was doing that at a pharma company at the time, a human pharma company, and I was able to help the scientists there do drug development by helping them with their animal models. And so, again, I was kind of using those science skills with my clinical skills. And then I just, towards the end of that, that was 2 years, I realized that I really wanted to get my PhD because it was really science that I was good at, and I wanted to do that. So I was in the Philadelphia area, so I went to Penn, got my PhD in cell and molecular biology, and was going to be a basic cancer biologist, work in academia at an institute. It was sort of reimagining my vet school days where I worked in a lab. Uh, and then I think my biological clock started to tick, and I decided, ooh, I better, have a child. And I had my child. after I finished my PhD, like right at the very last year of my PhD, um, and that changed everything again. So you become a mother, your priorities change, it's just all different again, and so I had to reevaluate my life, and he became the priority. I didn't really want to leave him. So I couldn't, for example, go back and do, an academic postdoc, which is a little bit like a glorified grad student where you're working even longer hours than a grad student. I couldn't do that and leave him at home. And so I thought, took me a little time, but I decided to start a science writing business. So I was able to stay at home with him, but stay engaged with science by like writing continuing education materials for pharma companies, translating scientific articles into something a lay person could understand, getting those articles published. So I learned all about the science writing industry. And then probably 4 years after that, when he was older, a little more independent, and I felt fully bonded with him and like things were on a good track, I started to consult at a animal health company, a large animal health company. And I loved that too. It was different. It was a good paycheck that allowed me to, care for us, etc. I learned a lot about drug development for animals, which I found fascinating. I learned about marketing and sales as well as the science behind it all. But I wasn't a big company girl. That's one thing I learned. So it was very difficult to, for example, make an impact that you could actually see in a big company like that, because mostly because they're big, it takes them longer time to make decisions, that kind of thing. And so, just fortuitously, and this is how the universe typically tends to work, right at that time when I was realizing, like, ooh, this is not really for me, even though I like it, I've learned a lot. I started to get recruited by the pioneering company in stem cell technology for pets. And at that time, and it always will be the pioneering company, is VetStem. And so I was recruited to VetStem, and it sounded fascinating. I was able to use my clinical skills combined with my PhD. It was, how do these cells work? Why are they working? And seeing dogs, being treated with stem cells for osteoarthritis and, dramatically improving, that kind of thing. And it was magical. I just fell in love with the space of regenerative medicine and kind of committed, not unknowingly really, my life to developing those products. And I stayed there for a good amount of time. And that's kind of where I got today. It was kind of what led me to today, is what I mean, to my current company.
Yeah. To me, you called them pioneering, and absolutely, this is to some people and probably a lot of people, this is kind of hard to wrap your mind around with stem cells because it is a very unique type of treatment for pets, but even for people, I feel like it's still kind of we're figuring out like all the ways that we can use this and benefit from this. So I am curious, just you have this really awesome diversity of experience from communicating scientific information to make it understandable, which by the way is extremely hard. So good for you. That is
Thank
really
you.
impressive. But then on top of it, producing these products that a lot of people may not fully understand. So what were your experiences with working in whether it's with veterinary communities or beyond about trying to communicate something that is new and different.
Yeah, well, I think it was challenging in the beginning days, back in 2005, 6, and 7, when the veterinary industry, regenerative medicine industry was really just beginning. Nobody really knew anything. And VetStem was the company at that time that was pioneering and being able to educate and treat the first animals with stem cells. And so, but the field was young. We didn't know a lot of things either then. And so, as the research evolved, we just continued to communicate those things. And but seeing is believing. And when you see a dog who can't really walk upstairs well, and you put stem cells in their joints, and 30 days later, they're a good percentage of them are out chasing squirrels in the backyard. Your eyes believe it, whether you don't know how it works, but it works. And so I think it was just challenging. And today we know a lot more, of course. There's more than 600 companies globally working in the human space on cell therapies, but still, I won't say struggling, but it's still a growing field, let's put it that way.
Yeah, yeah. And then you personally, you said that impact was really important for you. So, how were you feeling like you were thriving and having impact here and then maybe as you went to your next place?
I think there at VetStem, it was about bringing a new class of therapies to the marketplace. And so having a novel way to help pets that on many occasions didn't have other therapies. So osteoarthritis, of course, there's other therapies, but there's other chronic conditions that there are no therapies for that stem cells have been shown to work. And I can talk about those in a minute when I talk about my current company. So I felt like I was really having an impact in that way, and that all this animal research then paves the way for human research and paves the way for human clinical studies. All human clinical studies have to be backed up with preclinical animal models, that kind of thing. And so it was really contributing to the field as a whole to publish some of the first papers in dogs that showed that we could make them significantly better with stem cells. So I felt that was really meaningful to me. And also, I learned a lot about leadership and as I grew in these companies. There was a couple between VetStem and where I am now, but leadership in the ways of collaboration, being courageous, leading with compassion, creating a safe environment, teamwork, all those kinds of things. Sometimes you learn from negative environments as much as positive ones. And so I started to just bank all this information in my brain, and I started to have this feeling like, business could be done differently. Like I became really engaged with the idea that we could do business differently and still have a great business, and so make an impact on two fronts, both from a therapeutics perspective, in the field of veterinary medicine, but also from a human perspective in creating meaningful change in people's lives. And it's kind of evolved that it's mostly women. My current company, which I'll talk about in a minute, we're a female-led company, and it really wasn't by choice. It just sort of evolved in that manner. But so it's turned into that, like empowering women and teaching about leadership, growing leaders behind us, and so it's kind of multifactorial now.
Well, and even in your journey of with having a son and knowing that you can prioritize what you want to and have this very thriving, fulfilling career where you are making huge impact on multiple fronts, I think is a great example for other people in the profession. Like you said, this profession is very much women dominated. So I think it's good to have those role models and examples of people who are able to thrive in both aspects of and it's more than two. I think I we're dynamic, we've got so
Probably, yeah.
much yeah to us. I love this. What are at this point in your career, what are some of the things that you would recommend to others who will, are probably maybe early to mid career where they're kind of trying to find out what's the right path for them?
So that's a good question, because I would argue that I thought I knew the path. And then it was, as I look back on it now, it was really a simplistic idea about a girl who loved her horse. And that was like the basis of it. And as I grew and as a person in the world, and as the complexity of my understanding of how the world worked and what was available changed and grew, then so did my choices. And so like my son is an example right now of wanting to find the right things to do it forever. And I keep using this as an example, like, Ryan, like I've had 5 careers, and here I am. And so I just think that it's hard to know until you know. But the first place is in your heart. Where you are is not what you really want to be doing. It served you for some season of your life. And so then it's a matter of being open to what is potentially bringing you joy, or what is exciting you? I think it's all about this excitement, like what excites you. And what usually happens in those moments is you something excites you and they're like, "Oh, I can't do that. Oh, it's too hard." Or, 5 reasons why you'll never be able to do that kind of come to your mind. And if you can sort of push that aside and be like, "Wait, this is exciting to me," and just take one little action step towards investigating that or talking to somebody who does that, that kind of thing, is a good way to sort of get you launched on a new journey, at least understanding a new journey before the fear kind of comes in and squishes it for you. So that's
Yeah.
what I would recommend, is that people just listen to your heart and take a step towards something that it excites them to learn about that.
Yeah, I love that. If something kind of piques your curiosity, allow yourself to kind of play with it and just do something around it to learn more about it. Does that curiosity
Yes.
keep
Mhm.
growing where you're wanting to do more? And like a scientist, right? You've kind of started to test your hypothesis. Ooh, I might like this.
Mhm.
I like that.
Exactly.
So with your company that you're with now is Gallant. So what was the story to kind of get you into this company?
So I was already working in a different company. I was happy there. I was chief scientific officer. It was stable. I was really happy there. I loved everybody I worked with. And then a recruiter called me, and then they sent me the job description. I didn't ask for it. They sent it to me, and I looked at it and I was like, wow, this kind of looks like it was written for my background, for my set of skills. And of course it piqued my interest again, because I never stopped being in love with this space of regenerative medicine. And I looked at it and I looked at it, and it was kind of a hard decision to make a leap, because I was going from something that was a little bit more stable, or felt more stable, to a startup where there was nothing and we would have to create everything all over again. And oof, that was a little daunting to me at the time. And through a lot of conversations with friends and colleagues, they just said, "Linda, like, you have to do this." Like, we had started something at VetStem many years ago that we all really wanted to carry to fruition, and that was to really bring an off the shelf cell therapy to the marketplace. And for just a variety of reasons, that's a hard task. It requires tons of money. For a variety of reasons, we weren't able to do that there. And so this was my second chance to do that. And there were 2 other employees at Gallant before me, and both of them were people I had known from my past and everything. And they were just, vibrant about it. They were just, "Linda, come on, we have to do this," you know? And so I jumped in the pool and we started. And I mean, it was a daunting thing, but it's been an amazing journey. It's been a huge growth experience. The founder and CEO at that time, he was a special guy. His name was Aaron Hirschhorn. He was special. He was really a visionary, and he was very good at raising capital. And so it was an easy partnership. So I stayed in San Diego, set up and ran the business, and he lived in Miami. And he passed away 2 years ago. But so it's even more important for us now to fulfill our mission, and really the mission of Gallant and Gallant Therapeutics. It's kind of 2 business sectors: is to bring regenerative medicine to all pets globally. Period. And we're a female-led company. Most of my core team are women and people that I have worked with before at VetStem or other companies. So we have a very deep trust, and we're all just extremely passionate about bringing a whole new class of therapies to the marketplace.
Mhm. The people who currently work there, are there other veterinary professionals or what are kind of like the roles that you
Sure.
represent?
Yeah, so as part of clinical development and regulatory, those positions have veterinarians. Those veterinarians, one of them works with the FDA and also handles the clinical trials, so writes the protocols. And she has a team that under her that monitors the studies, those kinds of things. So there's a variety of veterinary and technician type roles that fulfills. I think that's probably the most of it. In the manufacturing space, we have PhDs and scientists. So, for example, I'm a DVM PhD, and I started off as chief scientific officer in this company before moving to CEO. And so I hired a DVM PhD from UC Davis to be our lead scientist. So we're transitioning to her now and growing her up. So that's another area if you're dual degreed. That it's really nice when you have that dual degree, even as a scientist. And she's a hardcore bench scientist, But in order to do some of the bench work and some of the thinking that has to go into creating, for example, potency assays on our cells, she has to understand the pathophysiology of disease and being able to apply science to those diseases. And so, dual degrees are often nice and necessary in industry roles as well.
Yes. So before I go and ask more questions about, your experience in leadership, and let's let people know a little bit more about Gallant,
Sure.
what stem cell, like what the company does, the business model, and what Gallant offers, especially the veterinary audience.
Sure. So Gallant is really two businesses, and I'll talk about the first piece of the business, which is where we started, and that was the vision for that piece of the business was to be able to harvest stem cells from the reproductive tissue. So you have a dog or a cat, you take it in and get spayed or neutered, and rather than throwing that tissue in the trash, the veterinarian puts it in our validated kit, sends it to our lab, we harvest the stem cells, and then we store them, bank them for future use. And then your veterinarian, like say 3 years from now, your dog gets osteoarthritis or something, probably we'd be way later than that because the reproductive tissue, which are usually taken from puppies, it gets OA or some other thing. Your veterinarian calls us, works with our clinical team, which has been in regenerative medicine for 15 years or so. Works with our clinical team and is able to create doses to give that pet back. So that's one piece of the business. But that piece of the business, other than the storage part of it, really isn't scalable. And it's also like it's not scalable globally, that kind of thing. And so, really, where the field has moved in the last 10 years is really to off the shelf or allogeneic therapies. And so, the second part of the business, which takes longer, costs more money, is what we call the therapeutics part. And so, in that part of the business, we have a contract research organization who has a dog. They donate their uterus through a spay procedure. We harvest the stem cells from that uterus. We have a CGMP ISO 7 manufacturing facility. We grow those stem cells up into millions and millions of doses. So, one uterus, for example, from a cat can create about 30 million doses of off the shelf cells. Those are all frozen down and then they become something that any pet can use. So, for example, allogeneic stem cells or mesenchymal stem cells, they have very low or no what they call MHC class 2 receptors, which are things that elicit an immune response in an animal. So it's called a universal donor. You can give the stem cells from this one dog to any dog and with no problem. And the stem cells then have immunomodulatory properties. So originally the idea, that everybody thought was that, a stem cell goes into the body and then it turns into something else, because that is a trait of stem cells. They can turn into muscle or heart or, fat or anything, cartilage. So we all thought, it's going to go in there and it's going to turn into that. And so it's regenerative. But it's really the school of thought now, and science is bearing it out, is that they secrete certain cytokines, and through paracrine effects, they go into the body. They're met with whatever environment that they're in. Maybe it's an inflammatory environment, and they secrete certain cytokines that then moderate what they're finding in the body. And so, for example, in our current product, which is slated to launch, it's an FDA regulated product. It's slated to launch in early 2025. It's for feline chronic gingivostomatitis. And there's a certain percentage of cats that don't respond to typical standard of care. The typical standard of care for those cats is you extract all of their teeth and you give them steroids. Well, then what do you do if they don't respond to that? Like, there's nothing left. And so those cats will die. And many of them go on and are euthanized because they're in too much pain.
Hey, thank you for watching Vet Life Reimagined. This is still a growing channel on YouTube, so liking the video, subscribing to the channel, leaving comments, and sharing the show all go a long, long way right now, and it is all seen and appreciated. Now, back to the conversation.
And so stem cells go in. It's been shown that feline chronic gingival stomatitis is a T cell mediated problem, and so stem cells secrete certain factors, IDO, PGE2, that then mitigate those overreacted T cells. So decrease T cell activation and T cell proliferation. And then those cats, a good portion of those cats, more than 60% of those cats, go on to improve and survive. Stem cells are the only thing known to be able to do that today. And so it makes them, well, I always say, pet parents call us crying for two reasons: either to get their cat into our study, or because their cat is doing so well on the stem cells. And so it's kind of an emotional thing. It's a small market, sure it is, but we have a platform of products. And so getting this one product through the FDA, which would be the first product when that happens, really de-risk the rest of the platform and enables us more easily to get the other products through to approval. So
Yeah. Get over the
that helps.
initial new shock, right? Of something and show that it can work and open the doors to the other things to make it go faster.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
fascinating. So you said it was a small market. I mean, to me, this seems like I wonder how widely known is this in the veterinary space, either among veterinary professionals, but also around pet owners. Like, do pet owners even know that this is an option for their pets?
So I think historically, VetStem did a great job of educating the veterinary community about stem cells. But I think for a long time, it was a specialist product. It was, it was started in horses and then dogs, and it was used by specialists who could inject joints easily, that kind of thing. And so I think the education piece is still a challenge, and still something that we're committed, or not something we're still committed, but it is something that we are committed to changing. It's part of the pre-marketing strategy to be able to increase awareness of regenerative medicine products with veterinarians. And I think there's some stigma in the industry too, and that the whole industry started in a non-regulated space, and as the FDA has been educated and caught on and caught up as well, we've grown into now this business that we're in now, which is an FDA regulated space, which is so I think historically there's this mm, perhaps less positive perception because and even on the human side, people are selling stem cell therapies without having adequate studies done to show their efficacy and safety and that kind of thing. So there's been a lot of, criticism on the human side. Well, that's part of the veterinary side as well. And so moving into this FDA regulated space, creating off the shelf therapies brings far more legitimacy and credibility to the space. And with that comes, though, the education of the non-specialist, all the GPs, about, hey, this works. These are our published papers. This is what we're doing. And that's a daunting task. It's a big job. So we're rolling that ball up the hill, but it'll be a little while. I mean, we're starting right now to work on campaigns, educational type campaigns for that. But it'll take some time, just like any new thing for any of us, right? It's going to take time to learn about it, accept it. It's somewhat complex. It's not easy to understand all the time, and but we're committed to doing that. So.
Yeah. Well, and that was one of the unique things that I picked up looking at the website was that you're moving from specialist ability to use this as a treatment to a general practice veterinarian. So I think the website said whatever veterinarian you're feeling comfortable having a spay or neuter procedure, they will be able to utilize this treatment for pets. So I think that's pretty exciting, especially for the veterinarians who do kind of take the opportunity to learn about it and implement that as another treatment option that they can offer clients and ultimately pets, right? I think is pretty exciting.
Yeah, 100%. We're excited about it. I think speaking to that too about general practitioners, it's one reason why, we're creating an osteoarthritis product for dogs that's delivered intravenously, because all veterinarians can give an intravenous injection, but not all veterinarians can give an intraarticular injection and feel confident about it. And so that piece is important to us. And we learned anecdotally, this is, learnings from way back when, but when you would treat a dog for atopic dermatitis and his atopic dermatitis would get better by treating him IV with stem cells, well, his OA would get better too. And so it was, just like watching and observing and trying to figure out what's going on there, which is what, gave us the idea that, oh, we should be looking at studies where we're trying to deliver this product intravenously for dogs that have osteoarthritis. Makes it a GP product. So
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
yeah, yeah.
That's fascinating. Um, and then going to your specific role, you're running a startup, you're managing not only a business, but individuals as well. You're working with venture capitalists. I mean, what are your experiences in this career? What do you like the most? What continues to challenge you?
So it's definitely been a growth journey for me, which I love. I'm very into personal development. So I love to always be learning about myself and um, and evolving. I think I always loved business. And so even in my last job, I was president and chief scientific officer. So I was kind of like the number two person. So you could work with the CEO and really learn more of the business aspects. And that's what I was when I came into Gallant, president and chief scientific officer. So I was allowed and able to partner with Aaron at the time to really learn the business at a much higher level because, we have first class venture capital investors on board. And with that comes a level of seriousness and a level of dedication and a level of just excellence, I should say, that is scary sometimes. And so I've been at every board meeting that we've had, but I wasn't really in charge of the board meetings until I became CEO. And even though I'd been there for 2 years doing it, making the slides and all of that, it became different when I had to own that process. And so but I do love it because it's allowed me to grow. So I've had to learn about finance. I've had to learn more deeply about hitting milestones that are what they are called value inflecting milestones for the business and why that's important for investors. And so it's this dance and this complex process of running the business in such a way that you're increasing its value or attempting to increase its value, managing the relationships of all the people involved, your board, your investors, and all the people that are with you on your team. um, I love that complexity. It's scary. It was more so then than now. But I think I've learned a lot too that um, and that's not always the case. So I don't want to, make this that it's a global phenomenon. But in our particular case, we have an amazing set of investors and an amazing board. They're all, I think I'm the only woman there, which I'm trying to change a little bit.
Nice.
But it's an amazing set of men who have empowered me and my team to grow and have just walked alongside us. And so from that perspective, I think it's been a blessing in that I've had a really safe and productive environment to be able to do the growth that I've had to do. So I still love the science. I'm not as deeply involved in the science. That's why I hired this stellar, amazing DVM PhD out of Davis, and she's just, I don't know, I'm so happy with her, and she's doing a great job. And I love sitting in on the R&D meetings and things, but I can tell the more time and effort that I have to put into this other part of the business, the less I'm able to keep up with all of the science and et cetera. But so I miss the science,
Yeah.
in short.
Do you think you will be able to get back to science in some way, or pretty focused here for now and worry about that later?
Yeah, so I think what I like to do now is participate and weigh in and make sure I'm understanding everything that's going on. Uh, and but I don't see myself going back, right? Like when you evolve as a person, like do you ever really go back to who you were, kind of thing? And so while I miss it, I now have I'm more focused on other things that are meaningful to me, growing leaders up behind me, and empowering the women and the men, but we only have two, but empowering everybody. But I'm focused on the women to know that they can work in a space and still have a child, and that there's a different way to do business. And so we're a very values focused. We have a very values focused culture. I'm adamant about it. Um, doesn't mean we don't have conflict, but we've developed enough trust with each other that we can have open conflict and have it all be okay. You know, people learn to apologize and take accountability for their behavior and things. But I would say in an overall way, the culture is what's really special about Gallant, and it's honestly too the reason why I always say we've been able to accomplish 6 years worth of work in three, because when you're with a group of people that are very um, that love what they do, that feel empowered to do their job, and are accountable for their area, so there's no micromanagement of anybody. There's synergistic effects to that that just make exponential growth, and it's I don't know. Even I sit back and I watch that and am impressed, and so I'm really focused more on the development of the people in our organization now, obviously with this at the same time that we're are trying to accomplish this huge mission in veterinary medicine. I'm more focused really or as focused on growing the people, including myself, in this. And that takes a level of vulnerability that's sometimes difficult as a leader to have, but I try to be that way, sharing my own fears and my own deficiencies, or I screw up one day, I have to apologize to somebody. So it's when they see me doing that, it's easier for them to do that. We try to create a safe space for people to grow into the potential of who they can be.
Mm. Lead by example. I think that's very wise. And everything that you've mentioned about growing people and leadership, I think can apply to any type of setting for someone who's trying to be a leader at any level, I think, as well, is trying to foster that culture. So, and I'm sure you've mentioned some of them already, but if someone came and wanted to know, I just got this new leadership position, I want to maintain a good culture, what are some of the top tips you would give that individual?
I think um, creating a positive environment and demanding that from people, or just making the environment so positive that the negative person really stands out and no longer feels comfortable. That's happened. People have dropped off of the organization the more positive and the more we grow. Some people who are more negative minded, they don't feel comfortable anymore. So I say creating a positive environment, focusing on values, visualizing your future together, having a growth mindset, and choosing people with these qualities, choosing positive people with a growth mindset. We harp a lot on self care. You won't see me, telling people to stay later. You'll see me at 6 o'clock when I'm leaving or something, saying, "Why are you still here?" Fostering self care, because if we're not taking care of ourselves, we're never going to be able to take care of the business. And focusing on being excellent, not perfect, but excellent at what you do.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. Is there anything else you've noticed in the profession that you would kind of recommend or send as encouragement?
At the risk of sounding cliche, I think I think people can be really whatever they want to be. I think it's a matter of listening to your heart and to taking some steps to figure that out. And I don't think it's bad to change. I've changed career, so to speak, like 5 times, and I think I'm doing okay. So I think don't be afraid to change, um, and you can do anything. So.
Great message. If people want to learn more about Gallant or stem cell regenerative medicine, where would you recommend that they go to learn more?
You can start with gallanttherapeutics.com, all spelled out. Um, That'd probably be the best place. There's also the other website for the storage business is gallant.com. There's a lot of information on that site too, probably some papers as well, published papers.
Fantastic. Are there
Mhm.
any type of materials or literature that veterinarians could hand out to clients around that conversation of spay, or to kind of, because when I was going through, I was thinking about that. I was like, oh goodness, that's a very
Mhm.
timely conversation. So are there materials that veterinarians could use to talk with pet owners?
Sure, we have them. Anybody can contact Gallant through the customer service line that we have. We can send them information. They can talk to our clinical veterinarians. Yeah, any of those options.
Fantastic. Well, I want to thank you for coming again on the podcast. I always end with a final four questions. So the first question is, what is something that people may get wrong about you?
Hmm. Um, so I can be kind of intense about work. The standards are really high, and our mission is huge. And so I think people at times feel like they can't make a mistake or they have to be perfect. And then when mistakes happen, my response is compassionate and solution focused. And so I think they learn and we build trust together that way that, oh, Linda's intense, but it's not what I thought. It's still going to be okay. You can make a mistake.
Excellent. And question number two is, what is a hidden skill or interest that you may have?
So I'd say that would be writing. I use writing a lot in my profession, and I have, but I've also published a nonfiction book on equine lameness. I wrote a novel that I had an agent for that I decided in the end not to publish, and I'm working on a book right now that is going into the revision stage. So it's probably maybe a year away from being ready for publication. So I love
Congratulations.
writing.
Yeah, that is a lot of work. Do you still ride too? When you first said riding, I thought you meant like horse riding.
Oh.
Do you still get to ride?
I don't, but we have a number of equine people in our company, and they're constantly trying to get me to ride. And I don't know what it is. I don't wanna ride. I do like to still watch horses. I love to pet them. I love to be around them, but I don't have that drive to ride anymore. Not sure why.
That's all right. Actually, I'm very similar. So I was one of those little girls that loved going to the barn and rode since very young age. And then in high school, I got a little focused on other things, and so I definitely get that. That's okay.
Yeah.
um,
Thanks.
the third question is, what is something on your bucket list?
Mm. Flying in a G6 to
Oh,
the
wow.
Galapagos Islands.
That would
So
be
it's kind of
incredible.
this bucket list thing when, some day in the future when we cross the threshold of having enough funding to do that, et cetera, is, taking our team to the Galapagos in a G6.
That would be really cool. And finally, what is something you're most grateful for?
Um, I think, all the love that I see in my life, um, my inner circle of my son, my partner, my close family, good friends. But as we've moved through this journey of, losing our former CEO, et cetera, I've really seen the love and support of so many amazing individuals around us, business people, high-powered businessmen who are just brought down to the heart level and walking alongside of us and helping to create this mission or fulfill this mission that we have as a company and as people. And so I'm just really deeply grateful for all of those individuals in my life.
Oh, wow. It does sound like you have a really good surrounding of good human beings, and that is really
Yeah.
important to find that position. So I'm very happy to hear that.
Mm.
And I'm kind of curious because, stem cells is big in human side, and there's probably a little One Health opportunity there. Is there something special about being in a pet space with this and having conversations, whether it's with venture capitalist or whatnot? Do you see that come into what you do?
So which part?
Oh, well, I guess really when I was thinking about it was the venture capitalists. You talked about,
Mm,
the
mhm,
businessmen. And,
mhm.
I just imagined this room and long table full of men in suits
I
and
see. Yeah.
having financial conversations.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if there was, some of the reasons why, yeah, I'm sure they're excited by the technology, but I didn't know if
Mm,
there was something special that you've kind of heard them say, or just kind of even within your own team, that the
mm,
fact that we're doing this with animals and pets. I didn't know if you had noticed that there was something
I
kind of
see.
special about that.
Well, usually they have a pet, and so they can all relate. And so I think everybody around our team has a dog. I was just thinking through the people. They all have a dog or a cat. Most of them have dogs. And so I think the moment you think about your dog, you're in a heart space, right? You're in a heart space. And so like that's what we allow people to bring their dogs to the office. I can walk out of my office and be stressed and upset about something, and the moment I see Jasper in our office, who's a big, lab, I immediately am not stressed. I'm happy, and you're different. And so I think our pets are like family, and I think that all those men, are part of our VCs. They think about their dogs that way too. They're like family, and so they're super committed as well to doing something novel and very noble, I would say, for the pet community, for the animal health community. I also think too that we're paving the way for human therapies. If we can get this product, the first one, and our whole pipeline, honestly, through the FDA, it really sets the stage for having human cell therapies be able to get through the FDA as well in the US. And so it's a noble endeavor, let's put it that way.
This has been the Vet Life Reimagined podcast. Whether you are listening or watching on YouTube, I hope you enjoyed this conversation. Please make sure you are subscribed to catch all these amazing people in our profession. Also, send this episode to someone you think who would appreciate it. Have a recommendation for someone who would be a good guest? Please reach out on LinkedIn, Instagram, or Facebook. There aren't that many Dr. Sprinkles. Until next time, Vet Lifers.